Her twin baby girls needed a donor, but the only match was her divorced, wealthy CEO who broke her heart. Blake Callahan built his empire on calculated risks and predictable outcomes, until the woman he destroyed called at dawn asking him to save 2 children he didn't know existed. Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself? Hi viewers, kindly tell us where you're watching from and what time it is. Warm welcome to the family. Enjoy the story. The phone rang at 3:47 a.m. and Nia knew before she answered that her world was about to collapse again, just like it had 3 years ago when the same man, now sleeping peacefully in Austin, had ripped her heart out and left her with nothing but secrets growing in her belly. Ms. Johnson, this is Dr. Martinez from Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. You need to get here immediately. Maya and Zara are in critical condition. The words hit like bullets. Nia's hands shook as she threw on clothes, her mind racing through possibilities she refused to accept. Her twin daughters, her everything, were dying from a rare genetic blood disorder, and the test came back devastating. Neither she nor anyone in her family could be donors. The hospital corridor buzzed with activity as nurses moved between rooms like dancers in some twisted ballet. Maya's tiny fingers wrapped around the foretube, while Zara's chest rose and fell with mechanical precision. The children who had never known their father were dying, and only he could save them. Have you ever had to swallow your pride to save someone you love? Nia whispered to herself, staring at her phone screen. Blake's contact info stared back, saved as don't answer for 3 years running. Dr. Martinez pulled her aside with test results that made reality crash down. The genetic markers are extremely specific. We need a biological parent for the bone marrow transplant to work. Without it, they have maybe 72 hours. 72 hours. 3 days to find the man who destroyed her, who walked away when she needed him most, who chose his billion-dollar empire over their love. But as her finger hovered over Blake's number, memories flooded back. That night in Charlotte when rain pounded their hotel window and his hands traced every curve of her body like he was memorizing sacred text. The way he whispered her name against her neck, breath hot and desperate. How he made love to her like she was the only woman in the world. Right before he proved she meant nothing at all. What would you sacrifice for someone you love? How far would you go before crossing your own boundaries? Tell me in the comments below. The call connected on the second ring. Nia. Blake's voice was rough with sleep, but alert. Even after 3 years, he recognized her number. I need you. The words scraped her throat raw. The children are dying. Silence stretched between them, filled with ghosts of everything they destroyed. I'm on my way. As she hung up, the doctor approached with new test results that made her blood freeze. The twins weren't just dying from any rare condition. They were dying from something so specific, so genetic, that only their biological father could save them. Blake wasn't just her ex-husband coming to help his ex-wife's children. He was about to discover he was their father. And when he walked through those hospital doors in 6 hours, everything, the lies, the secrets, the 3 years of carefully buried truth, would explode in his face like a bomb she'd been carrying since the day he signed those divorce papers and left her pregnant and alone. Blake Callahan built his empire on calculated risks and predictable outcomes, until the woman he destroyed called at dawn asking him to save 2 children he didn't know existed. The private jet cut through clouds above Georgia while Blake stared at his reflection in the window. 3 years of therapy, meditation, and carefully constructed walls, destroyed by 7 words, I need you. The children are dying. His assistant had canceled a board meeting worth $50 million without question. When Blake Callahan dropped everything to fly across the country for his ex-wife, nobody asked why. They just made it happen. But Blake knew why. Guilt. The kind that ate you alive at 3 a.m. when the penthouse felt too big and success tasted like ash. Children's Healthcare of Atlanta smelled like disinfectant and broken dreams. Blake's designer shoes echoed against polished floors as he followed directions to the pediatric ICU, his heart hammering like it hadn't since his first business presentation. Then he saw her. Nia stood beside 2 small beds, her nurse scrubs wrinkled from sleepless nights, her beautiful face drawn with exhaustion. 3 years had only made her more stunning, the kind of woman who stopped traffic without trying. But it was the children that made his world tilt sideways. Maya opened her eyes first, hazel eyes that mirrored his own, set in a face that could have been his baby pictures. Zara stirred next, and Blake's breath caught in his throat. Her stubborn chin, the way her eyebrows curved, even the little dimple in her left cheek. These weren't just Nia's children. "How long have you known?" he whispered, unable to look away from Maya's tiny hand reaching toward him. Nia's voice was steady as steel, but her eyes held 3 years of pain. "Since the day you walked away." The machines around them beeped in rhythm while Blake processed the impossible. He was a father, had been a father for 3 years without knowing it. While he'd been building towers of glass and steel, his daughters had been taking first steps, saying first words, fighting for their lives. Have you ever discovered a truth that changed everything you thought you knew about yourself? Share your moment of revelation below. His phone buzzed. A text from his mother. "I know where you are. Don't you dare let that woman trap you again." But standing in that hospital room, watching Maya's chest rise and fall with each labored breath, Blake realized the trap wasn't Nia. The trap was 3 years of believing his mother's lies. 3 years of thinking he'd made the right choice. 3 years of dying slowly inside while telling himself it was for the best. The donor compatibility tests will take a few hours, Dr. Martinez explained, drawing blood from Blake's arm. But based on genetic markers, you're likely a perfect match. As the needle pierced his skin, Blake made a promise to the daughters he'd never known existed. This time, he wouldn't run. This time, he'd fight, even if it meant destroying everything he'd built to protect them. Because some things mattered more than money. Some things were worth losing everything for. Some conversations can't be postponed by dying children, boardroom emergencies, or 3 years of carefully avoiding the truth. Especially when that truth is staring at you from 2 hospital cribs. The coffee in the hospital cafeteria tasted like regret and broken promises. Blake sat across from Nia at a plastic table that had seen too many difficult conversations, watching her stir sugar into her cup like it might dissolve the past. "You left me pregnant and alone," Nia said finally, her voice steady despite the tears threatening to fall. "I delivered our daughters by myself, worked 3 jobs to survive, and never once asked for your help. Don't you dare act like the victim now." Blake's chest tightened. "I didn't know, because you didn't want to know." Her spoon clinked against the ceramic cup. "You signed those papers and disappeared like I was some mistake you needed to erase." The memory hit him like a physical blow. Their secret wedding in Charlotte's botanical gardens, hidden from the world that would never accept a tech billionaire marrying a black nurse from Birmingham. He'd been so proud, so happy, so convinced love could conquer everything, until his mother made it clear love wasn't enough. "My board threatened to pull funding," Blake said quietly. "Mother showed me the polls, the market research. Dating you cost me 40% approval with investors. Marrying you would have destroyed everything I'd built. So you chose money. I chose what I thought was practical." The words tasted like poison. "I told myself you'd be better off without me dragging you into that world." Nia's laugh was bitter. "Better off? I was 24, pregnant, and homeless within a month. But sure, Blake, I was so much better off." The hospital corridor beyond the cafeteria window buzzed with activity. Doctors saving lives, families holding vigils, people fighting for what mattered. Blake had spent 3 years in boardrooms discussing quarterly profits while his daughters grew up without him. When someone abandons you at your most vulnerable moment, can forgiveness ever really happen? Tell me your thoughts on second chances. His phone showed 17 missed calls from his mother. Blake turned it face down. "The night before I signed the divorce papers," he said slowly, "I drove to your apartment. I sat outside for 2 hours, trying to find the courage to tell you I'd changed my mind." Nia's stirring stopped, but I was a coward. I convinced myself I was protecting you from the media circus, from the scrutiny that would have destroyed your career. I thought I was being noble. You were being selfish. Her eyes met his across the table. You protected yourself from having to fight for us. The truth hit harder than any business failure ever had. She was right. Every excuse he'd made, every rationalization, it all came down to fear. Fear of losing his empire, his reputation, his carefully constructed image. Dr. Martinez appeared beside their table. Mr. Callahan, the blood work is back. You're a perfect match for both children. We can schedule the procedure for tomorrow morning. Blake nodded, but his eyes stayed on Nia. There's something else you need to know. Her jaw tightened. What? Your mother called this morning. She knows about the twins. He paused, watching color drain from her face. And she's coming here. Victoria Callahan didn't build a political dynasty by accepting defeat, and she certainly wasn't going to let two sick children destroy her son's carefully crafted image. The hospital lobby transformed when she arrived. Patients and families instinctively moved aside as Victoria swept through the entrance like winter personified. Designer coat, glacial composure, and the kind of authority that made security guards step aside without question. Behind her, 3 lawyers in sharp suits moved like sharks sensing blood. Where are they? Victoria's voice could freeze fire. Blake stood from the waiting room chair, positioning himself between his mother and the elevator that led to his daughters. Mother, don't mother me. Do you have any idea what you've done? The board is an emergency session. Stock prices dropped 12 points this morning. The media is already sniffing around. Nia emerged from the elevator, still wearing scrubs, exhaustion etched in every line of her face. Victoria's gaze swept over her with the kind of assessment reserved for bugs under microscopes. Miss Johnson, the name dripped with disdain. Still playing the victim, I see. Mrs. Callahan, Nia's voice held steel wrapped in silk. Still destroying lives for sport. The lawyers shuffled papers like weapons. Victoria's smile could have cut glass. I've had her background thoroughly investigated, Victoria announced. Single mother, multiple jobs, questionable financial decisions. And now, conveniently, children who supposedly belong to my son appear right when his company goes public. Blake's voice dropped to dangerous quiet. Those are my children, mother. Prove it. The blood tests can be falsified. DNA can be manipulated. This woman has spent 3 years planning this moment, waiting for maximum impact. Victoria turned to her lawyers. We're requesting independent paternity testing through the court system. The elevator dinged. Dr. Martinez stepped out, holding a tablet. Mr. Callahan, we need to discuss the surgery timeline. Your daughter's condition is deteriorating faster than expected. We need to operate within the next 18 hours or... He didn't finish the sentence. He didn't need to. Have you ever had to choose between family loyalty and doing what's right? When did you find the courage to stand up to someone who controlled your life? Blake looked at his mother, the woman who'd raised him, funded his dreams, opened doors that would have remained locked forever. Then he looked at Nia, holding photos of Maya and Zara from her phone screen. His daughters, dying while his mother played political games. Schedule the surgery, he told Dr. Martinez, and prepare 2 press statements, one announcing my children and one announcing my new priorities. Victoria's face went white. Blake, you don't understand what you're risking. I understand perfectly. His voice carried the weight of 3 years' worth of regret. The question is whether you do. He turned to the lawyers. Any attempt to interfere with my daughter's medical care will be met with a restraining order and criminal charges. Test my resolve. Victoria's composure cracked for the first time in decades. You're choosing her over family. I'm choosing my family. Finally. The operating room where Blake's bone marrow would save his daughters became the battlefield, where he finally fought for the family he should have protected 3 years ago. Pre-surgery prep felt like preparing for war. Blake lay on the gurney while nurses attached monitors and 4 lines, his eyes fixed on the window overlooking the pediatric ICU. Through the glass, he could see Nia holding both twins, whispering promises their father was finally here to keep. First time donating bone marrow. The anesthesiologist checked his chart. First time doing a lot of things, Blake admitted. Maya had woken up that morning asking for the man with eyes like hers. When Blake approached her bedside, Her tiny hand reached for his face with the trust only children possess. "Are you my daddy?" The word hit him like a physical blow. 3 years of board meetings, IPO launches, and corporate victories. None of it mattered compared to those 4 syllables. "Yes, sweetheart. I'm your daddy, and I'm never leaving you again." Zara stirred in the next bed, her fever breaking for the first time in days. "Daddy, why are you crying?" "Because I missed your first steps," he thought. "Your first words." 3 years of bedtime stories and scraped knees and Christmas mornings. Happy tears, baby girl. Just happy tears. The surgery itself took 4 hours. Blake drifted in and out of consciousness while machines harvested the life-saving cells his daughters needed. Through the medication haze, he heard nurses discussing the procedure's complexity, the precision required to extract enough marrow for 2 children. What does it feel like when someone sees you as their hero for the first time? Share a moment when you realized how much someone needed you. Recovery brought unexpected complications. Dr. Martinez appeared beside Blake's bed with concern written across his face. The initial transplant was successful, but Maya's body is showing signs of rejection. "We need additional procedures, possibly multiple surgeries over the next few weeks. Whatever it takes. Mr. Callahan, I need you to understand. This could be a long process. Months of treatment, regular procedures, constant monitoring. Are you prepared for that commitment?" Blake thought of his penthouse apartment in Austin, empty and cold. His corner office overlooking the city, meaningless without family to share success with. The life he'd built that felt hollow now that he understood what he'd been missing. "Doctor, I'm not going anywhere." Nia appeared in the doorway, tears streaming down her face. "The girls are stable. Both of them. The transplant is working." Relief flooded through him like warm water. His daughters would live. His children would grow up, go to school, fall in love, have families of their own. But as Blake reached for Nia's hand, his phone buzzed with a call that made his blood freeze. "Mr. Callahan, this is Channel 5 News. We're running a story about your secret family tomorrow morning." The headline reads, "Tech Billionaire's Hidden Children." Would you like to comment? The media storm was about to break, and this time there was nowhere to hide. Nia's eyes widened as she heard the reporter's voice through the speaker. Their private hell was about to become public entertainment. Fame is a spotlight that reveals everything you've tried to hide, including the love you sacrificed, the children you abandoned, and a woman who deserved better than your cowardice. By 6 a.m., news trucks lined the hospital parking lot like modern-day vultures. Camera crews positioned telephoto lenses at every window while reporters practiced sound bites that would reduce Blake and Nia's story to scandal and sensation. Tech billionaire's secret baby mama flashed across morning show screens nationwide. Blake paced the pediatric ICU waiting room like a caged animal, his phone buzzing with calls from lawyers, board members, and crisis management teams. Outside, protesters had joined the media circus, some supporting interracial families, others condemning corporate hypocrisy. "Mr. Callahan, your stock dropped 18 points in pre-market trading," his assistant reported through hands-free connection. "The board wants an emergency meeting. Tell the board I'm exactly where I need to be." Nia sat between the twins' beds, somehow maintaining grace under siege. Maya had asked why so many people were outside with cameras, and Nia had simply said, "Sometimes grown-ups make mistakes, and other grown-ups like to talk about it." Security forced them to relocate to a private suite for safety. Sharing the hotel room felt like stepping back in time. The first night they'd spent in the same space since their divorce. Blake on the couch, Nia in the bed, both hyper-aware of each other's presence in the darkness. Have you ever had your private pain become public entertainment? How do you protect what matters most when everyone's watching? The press conference was Blake's idea. Face the storm head-on instead of hiding from it. Reporters packed the hospital conference room like hungry wolves. Blake took the podium with Nia beside him, the united front deliberate and powerful. "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm here to address recent speculation about my personal life." Flash bulbs exploded. Questions shouted over each other. "Mr. Callahan, did you abandon your pregnant wife?" Blake's jaw tightened, but his voice stayed steady. I made the worst mistake of my life 3 years ago. I let fear and outside pressure convince me to walk away from the woman I loved and the family we could have built together. Were you aware of the children's existence? I was not, but ignorance doesn't excuse abandonment. I failed as a husband, and I failed as a father before I even knew I was one. A reporter near the back called out, "Ms. Johnson, are you after his money?" The room fell silent. Nia leaned toward the microphone, her voice clear and strong. "I worked 3 jobs to support my daughters. I never asked Blake for a single dollar. Not when I was pregnant, not when they were born, not when I couldn't afford their medical bills. I called him because they were dying, not because I needed his money. I needed their father." Blake's hand found hers on the podium. "These are my children. This is my family. And I'm spending every day from now on earning the forgiveness I don't deserve and the trust one threw away." As they left the podium together, Blake's phone lit up with a message that changed everything. "Sir, someone leaked your private financial records. They know about the trust funds you established for Nia and the children, the ones you set up the day after you signed the divorce papers." Nia's eyes widened. "What trust funds? The cruelest lies aren't the ones we tell others. They're the ones we tell ourselves to survive decisions that nearly destroyed us." The hotel suite overlooked Atlanta's skyline as Blake opened his laptop, revealing bank records, private investigator reports, and legal documents spanning 3 years. Evidence of love hidden behind lawyers and corporate structures, protection disguised as abandonment. "I never stopped looking for you," Blake admitted, his voice barely above a whisper. "Every lead, every possible address, every social media profile that might have been yours. When you disappeared, I thought I'd lost my chance forever." Nia stared at the screen, showing monthly deposits into an account bearing her name, an account she'd never known existed. $50,000 transferred religiously on the 15th of every month for 36 months straight. $1.8 million, she breathed. "You've been sending money for 3 years. I set up the accounts hoping someday I could find you and make things right. The lawyer said if you ever needed emergency funds, they'd be there automatically." Private investigator reports filled folder after folder. Photos of her old apartment building, interviews with former coworkers, credit checks showing her 3 different jobs, and constant address changes as she tried to survive as a single mother. Have you ever discovered someone loved you in ways you never knew? That they were protecting you even when it seemed like abandonment? Share your story of hidden devotion. But it was the legal documents that made Nia's hands shake. Blake had transferred 40% of his company shares into a trust fund for Maya and Zara, papers dated exactly 1 week after signing their divorce. "You made our daughters millionaires while I was rationing formula and working double shifts. I was trying to take care of you the only way I knew how, without admitting I'd made the biggest mistake of my life." Blake's phone buzzed with photos that made his face go white. Pictures of Nia with another man, holding hands, laughing, looking happy. The timestamp showed 6 months after their divorce. "This is why I stopped searching," he said quietly, showing her the screen. "My mother's investigators found these. She said you'd moved on, found someone better, were building a new life. She convinced me reaching out would only hurt you more." Nia studied the photos, her expression shifting from confusion to rage. "Blake, this is my cousin Marcus, from Birmingham. These were taken at my sister's wedding." The truth hit him like a physical blow. "What? This man helping me out of the car? That's my cousin. The one holding my hand during the ceremony? Also my cousin. The one making me laugh." She pointed at each photo. "My baby cousin who was cracking jokes to keep me from crying through the whole wedding because I was pregnant and alone and missing my husband." Blake's world tilted sideways. 3 years of believing Nia had moved on. 3 years of thinking his mother was protecting him from further rejection. 3 years of manufactured evidence designed to keep him away from the woman he loved. "Your mother paid people to stage these photos? She paid investigators to misrepresent them." Same thing. As the implications sank in, Maya started crying from the bedroom. Not from illness this time, but from fever. The stress of media attention and family chaos was affecting both twins. "We need to get back to the hospital," Blake said, but Nia grabbed his arm. "Wait, if you never stopped loving us, why didn't you fight harder?" His answer would either heal or destroy them. "Because she showed me those pictures and convinced me you were better off without me. She made me believe love wasn't enough to overcome the damage I'd already done." Some betrayals cut so deep they rewrite history, until the day truth surfaces and you realize the enemy was never who you thought it was. The emergency surgery waiting room became their war headquarters as Blake's phone buzzed with evidence his security team had uncovered. Bank records showing payments to actors, timestamps proving manufactured encounters, Victoria's web of lies cracking apart thread by thread. Maya's fever had spiked dangerously, requiring immediate surgical intervention. The transplanted bone marrow was rejecting, and doctors worked frantically to stabilize her condition while Blake and Nia waited in agonizing helplessness. When you discover someone manipulated your biggest life decisions, how do you move forward? Can relationships survive that kind of deception? Tell me about overcoming betrayal. Blake's security chief, a former FBI agent named Davis, spread documents across the waiting room table like evidence at a crime scene. "Your mother paid Hartwell Investigations $60,000 over 3 years, Davis explained. They hired actors to pose as Nia's boyfriends, staged romantic encounters, even created fake social media profiles showing her in relationships. The photos that had convinced Blake to stop searching were elaborate productions. Professional actors paid to hold Nia's hand, kiss her cheek, play the role of devoted boyfriend, while investigators captured evidence of her moving on. She intercepted 17 attempts you made to contact Nia through your lawyers," Davis continued. "Blocked emails, redirected calls, even had fake rejection letters sent in Nia's name telling you to leave her alone. Nia studied bank records showing the elaborate conspiracy. She spent more money keeping us apart than most people make in a lifetime. Money well spent, from her perspective," Blake said bitterly. "She saved my reputation, protected the company's stock, kept me focused on business instead of family." When Victoria arrived at the hospital, demanding access to her granddaughter, Blake met her in the corridor with Davis beside him and evidence in his hands. "You paid actors to convince me Nia had moved on," he said, voice deadly quiet. "You intercepted my calls, blocked my emails, manufactured evidence to destroy my marriage." Victoria's composure finally cracked. "I saved your career. Do you have any idea what dating her cost you? The board nearly voted you out. Investors were pulling funding. I protected everything we built. You destroyed everything that mattered." She was beneath you, Blake, a nurse from Alabama with nothing to offer except love, loyalty, the kind of woman who would work 3 jobs to avoid asking for help, the kind of mother who would call the man who broke her heart to save their children. Security footage from Davis's investigation showed Victoria directing her attorney to stage the fake encounters, counting out cash payments to actors, even rehearsing scenarios to make the deception more believable. Maya's surgery is touch and go. Dr. Martinez interrupted their confrontation. The rejection was caused by stress hormones. Children this young are incredibly sensitive to family dynamics. She got sick because she could sense the conflict between her parents. Blake and Nia looked at each other, understanding the devastating implication. Their daughter's life depended on them healing the damage Victoria had caused. "She needs emotional stability to survive," the doctor continued. "United parents, consistent environment, reduced stress levels. Simply put, Maya will keep getting sick until you two figure out how to be a family." Victoria's face went white as the reality hit her. Her manipulation hadn't just destroyed a marriage, it was killing her granddaughter. Sometimes the only way forward is through the wreckage of what you used to be. But when children's lives hang in the balance, you learn to build bridges from broken pieces. The penthouse apartment overlooking Piedmont Park became their neutral territory. 2 bedrooms, shared living space, and twin cribs positioned where both parents could respond to midnight calls. It felt like playing house with the highest possible stakes. Maya's health improved dramatically once Blake and Nia established consistent routines. morning coffee together while the twins ate breakfast, shared bath time duties, reading bedtime stories as a team, Blake handling voices while Nia managed the dramatic pauses. "We're good at this," Nia admitted one evening, watching Blake expertly diaper Maya while singing off-key lullabies. "We always were," he replied, snapping the tiny outfit closed. It was everything else we couldn't figure out. Domestic intimacy crept back gradually. Accidental touches in the kitchen when they reached for the same coffee mug. Blake's hand steadying Nia's elbow when she stumbled over toy blocks. The electric awareness of shared space, shared responsibility, shared love for their daughters. When you're forced to work with someone who hurt you, can you separate the pain from the partnership? How do you co-parent with complicated history? Living together meant witnessing each other's parenting instincts. Blake discovered Nia sang the same lullaby every night, a song her grandmother had taught her. Nia watched Blake build elaborate block towers with Zara, his patience endless even when she knocked them down repeatedly. The media attention gradually shifted to more positive coverage. Billionaire father steps up replaced the earlier scandal headlines. Blake's company stock stabilized as investors recognized his commitment to family values. But sharing close quarters also meant confronting 3 years of suppressed attraction. Blake making coffee in the morning, hair messy and shirt unbuttoned. Nia emerging from the shower in a towel, skin damp and smelling like vanilla soap. The marriage might have been broken, but the chemistry never died. Late one night, with both twins finally asleep, they found themselves on the couch sharing a bottle of wine and talking like they used to. About dreams, fears, the future they'd once planned together. "Do you think we could have made it work?" Nia asked, her head resting on his shoulder. "If your mother hadn't interfered, I think we were too young to fight the right battles," Blake admitted. "I let other people's opinions matter more than my own heart." Their faces were inches apart, wine making them brave and honest. The kiss happened naturally, soft, tentative, filled with 3 years of missing each other. When they broke apart, both were breathing hard. "This is complicated," Nia whispered. "Everything about us is complicated." 3 weeks of domestic harmony shattered when Blake's phone rang during dinner. His face went white as he listened to his attorney's urgent voice. "Mr. Callahan, your mother has filed for emergency custody of the twins. She's claiming you and Ms. Johnson are unfit parents living in sin. The hearing is tomorrow morning." Across the table, Nia's face drained of color. "She can't take our children." Blake's jaw tightened as he reached across the table for her hand. "She won't, but there's only one way to guarantee it." He met her eyes with a proposal that would change everything. "Marry me." Again, the first time he proposed, it was about love. The second time, it was about war. But sometimes the fiercest battles are fought for the most tender reasons. The courthouse steps at dawn looked nothing like their first wedding in Charlotte's botanical gardens. But Blake's eyes held the same intensity as he held out the simple platinum band. "This time," he said, voice steady despite the chaos around them, "I'm fighting for us instead of running from us." Emergency wedding planning at 5 a.m. involved Blake's legal team, a judge willing to perform early ceremonies, and 2 flower girls who thought they were going to a party. Maya and Zara wore matching yellow dresses, completely unaware their future depended on their parents' ability to convince a courtroom they belonged together. "Are we doing this for them or for us?" Nia asked, adjusting Blake's tie in the courthouse bathroom mirror. "Does it matter?" he replied, watching her fingers work against his collar. "If it protects our family and gives us another chance, does the reason matter?" Her hand stilled. "It matters to me." "Then we're doing it for us. Because I never stopped loving you, and I think you never stopped loving me." The ceremony lasted 7 minutes. Judge Patterson, a no-nonsense woman in her 60s, had seen enough custody battles to recognize genuine emotion versus legal maneuvering. When Blake kissed his bride, really kissed her like he meant it, the judge smiled for the first time that morning. Would you marry someone again after they broke your heart if it meant protecting your children? Where's the line between practical decisions and emotional ones? Getting dressed for the courthouse had been an exercise in suppressed attraction. Blake in his perfectly tailored suit, Nia in a simple white dress that made her look like the woman he'd fallen in love with 5 years ago, stealing glances at each other while pretending this was purely strategic. But when their lips met at the altar, when Blake's hand cupped her face like she was precious, the strategy dissolved into something real. Victoria's custody hearing became a celebration of their renewed union. Judge Patterson reviewed their marriage certificate, family photos with beaming twins, and medical records showing improved health since Blake and Nia started cohabitating. Mrs. Callahan, the judge addressed Victoria with barely concealed irritation. Your concerns about unmarried cohabitation are now moot. These children have 2 married parents who've demonstrated commitment to their well-being. Victoria's lawyers shuffled papers desperately, looking for angles that no longer existed. However, Judge Patterson continued, and Blake's heart stopped. I'm troubled by another issue that's come to my attention. She turned to Blake and Nia with an expression that made their blood freeze. I've reviewed your previous divorce decree, Mr. Callahan. There's something you both need to know about those papers you signed 3 years ago. The courtroom fell silent, except for Maya's happy babbling from Nia's arms. According to my records, your divorce was never legally processed. The papers were drafted, but never filed with the state. Which means, technically speaking, you've been legally married this entire time. Blake and Nia stared at each other in shock. They just married their own spouse. And Victoria's face suggested this revelation was about to get much worse. The divorce papers that destroyed their marriage were never legally filed, which meant for 3 years, Blake and Nia had been legally married while believing they were divorced. Judge Patterson's chambers felt airless as legal documents spread across mahogany like evidence of crimes against love itself. 3 years of believing they were strangers when law said they were spouses. 3 years of thinking their marriage was dead when it had simply been buried alive. Your mother, Judge Patterson addressed Blake directly, had the divorce papers drafted and notarized, but never filed them with the state of North Carolina. She's been collecting spousal support payment from accounts in your name while keeping you both unaware of your legal status. Victoria sat rigid in her chair, expensive lawyers flanking her like bodyguards, her composure finally cracking as decades of manipulation came to light. Furthermore, the judge continued, Mrs. Callahan Sr. has been accessing joint accounts that legally belong to both spouses, transferring funds, even taking out loans against properties that required both signatures. This constitutes fraud on multiple levels. Bank records painted a picture of systematic theft. Victoria had been living off Blake and Nia's marriage while convincing them it didn't exist, playing both sides, collecting money while keeping them apart. If you discovered someone had been controlling your life through legal manipulation, how would you rebuild? What would justice look like to you? Blake's voice was deadly quiet. How much money are we talking about? Approximately $3 million over 3 years, Judge Patterson replied, plus interest, penalties, and emotional damages that could triple that amount in civil court. Nia squeezed Blake's hand as the implications hit them. They'd been married this entire time. Every night, she cried herself to sleep thinking she was divorced and abandoned. She'd actually been a wife whose husband didn't know she existed. The twins, legally speaking, had never been children of divorce. They'd been children of a marriage that was hidden from their own parents. The emergency custody petition is dismissed with prejudice, Judge Patterson announced. Mrs. Callahan, you'll be lucky if criminal charges aren't filed. Fraud, theft, identity manipulation. The district attorney will have plenty to choose from. Victoria's lawyers whispered urgently in her ears, but her eyes stayed fixed on Blake with the cold fury of someone watching their life's work crumble. You think you've won, she said, voice dripping venom. But you have no idea what you've started. This family has enemies you don't even know about. Security footage from the courthouse showed Victoria making phone calls in the parking lot after the hearing. Her conversations were animated, angry, and according to Blake's security team, directed at people with questionable backgrounds, walking out of the courthouse as vindicated spouses instead of desperate co-parents. Blake stopped suddenly on the marble steps. We're legally married, he said, wonder and disbelief mixing in his voice. "We've been married this entire time." Nia's response surprised them both. "Then let's go home, husband." But as they reached the car, Blake's security chief Davis approached with an expression that meant trouble. "Sir, we have a problem. Someone broke into your Atlanta residence while you were in court. They went straight to the twins' nursery." Blake's blood turned to ice. "What do they take?" "Maya's stuffed elephant, the one she sleeps with every night." Davis handed him photos from the security cameras. But they left something behind. The note was simple and terrifying. "Beautiful children. Maya especially loves her elephant. We'll be in touch about playdates." Victoria hadn't been making idle threats. She'd activated something dangerous, and now their daughters were targets. Victory celebrations ended abruptly when they discovered that destroying Victoria's custody claim had awakened something far more dangerous. Someone willing to hurt children to hurt Blake. The nursery looked like a tornado had swept through it. Cribs overturned, clothes scattered across hardwood floors, and worst of all, Maya's favorite stuffed elephant missing from where she dropped it that morning. Security cameras showed a figure in black moving through their home with purpose while they'd been celebrating legal victory across town. "This wasn't random," Davis explained, reviewing footage on his tablet. "They knew exactly where to find personal items, knew your court schedule, knew the twins' routines. Someone with inside information is targeting your family." Blake paced the living room like a caged animal, his protective instincts reaching dangerous levels. Who has access to that kind of detail? Former employees, business rivals, political enemies your mother cultivated over the years. Davis pulled up files on his laptop. The Callahan name has made plenty of enemies in 30 years of corporate warfare. The safe house felt like a prison wrapped in luxury. Blake's security team had moved them to a penthouse downtown with bulletproof windows and guards at every entrance. Sharing a bed for the first time in years should have been romantic, but fear made every shadow look like a threat. When protecting your family means changing everything about your life, what sacrifices are worth making? How do you maintain normal life under extraordinary circumstances? Maya cried for her elephant every night. Zara sensed the tension and became clingy, refusing to let either parent out of her sight. The twins who'd finally found stability were now living in protective custody because their grandmother had made powerful enemies. The ransom demand arrived via encrypted email at 2 a.m., sent to Blake's personal account that only family and close business associates knew existed. "Your children are adorable. Maya especially loves her elephant. Transfer $50 million to the following account within 48 hours, or find out how much you're willing to lose." But it was the signature that made Blake's blood run cold. The message wasn't signed by a stranger or business rival. It was signed your loving mother. Victoria hadn't been arrested. She'd somehow escaped federal custody and taken their fight to a level that crossed every line imaginable. Davis confirmed Blake's worst fears. Victoria Callahan was released on bail this morning. Her lawyers argued she was a flight risk due to age and medical conditions, not public safety. She posted bond and disappeared 3 hours later. "She's using our own children as weapons," Nia whispered, holding both twins close as they slept. Blake's phone buzzed with another message, this one containing photos that made his hands shake. Maya's elephant sitting on an unfamiliar table. Zara's favorite blanket spread across a child-sized bed. Someone had been collecting their daughter's belongings for weeks, preparing for this moment. The next message contains location coordinates, Davis reported. "She wants to meet. Just you, no security, no police." "Absolutely not," Nia said immediately. "She has leverage now," Blake replied grimly. "As long as she's free, our children aren't safe. This ends tonight." But as Blake prepared to confront his mother one final time, Davis delivered news that changed everything. "Sir, there's something else." The FBI tracked Victoria's location. She's not working alone, and she's not hiding in some hotel. She's holed up in the Callahan family estate with armed security. His mother had declared war, and she'd chosen the battleground where it all began. Some battles end with surrender, others with victory. But the fight for your children's lives ends only when you're willing to sacrifice everything, including the person you used to be. Victoria's estate outside Atlanta looked like a fortress in the moonlight. Iron gates, security cameras, and armed guards protecting a woman who declared war on her own grandchildren. FBI vehicles surrounded the property while Blake and Nia waited in bulletproof vests, hearts hammering with the terror only parents understand. She's got 6 private security personnel, all former military. FBI agent Coleman briefed them. Motion sensors, armed patrols, and enough firepower to hold off an army. Your mother didn't plan this overnight. The estate Blake had grown up visiting for holidays and family celebrations now looked like enemy territory. Childhood memories of Christmas mornings and birthday parties twisted into something dark and threatening. Mrs. Callahan has agreed to release any children on the property in exchange for a face-to-face meeting with her son. Agent Coleman continued. No weapons, no backup, just conversation. The hell with that, Nia said immediately. She's already proven she'll hurt children to get what she wants. Blake studied the estate through binoculars, remembering every room, every hallway, every hiding place he discovered as a boy. She's not keeping the twins here. This is about power, not kidnapping. She wants me to come crawling back, begging for her approval. The phone call came at midnight. Hello, Blake. Victoria's voice was calm, controlled, like she was discussing dinner plans instead of threatening her grandchildren. Where are they? Safe. For now. But children are so fragile, aren't they? Especially children with delicate medical conditions. Blake's blood turned to ice. If you hurt them, I won't have to. Do you know what happens to bone marrow transplant patients under extreme stress? Their bodies reject the donor cells. Maya and Zara could relapse within hours if they're frightened enough. The cruelest torture wasn't physical harm. It was using their daughter's medical vulnerability as a weapon. What do you want? Divorce papers. Real ones this time. Filed and final within 24 hours. Full custody of the children to me as their legal guardian. And Nia disappears forever. Blake looked at his wife, his actual wife, as they'd just learned, standing beside him in body armor, ready to walk into hell for their children. And if I refuse, then you'll spend the rest of your life wondering if today was the last time you heard their voices. The FBI stormed the estate at 3 a.m. Blake insisted on going in first, following childhood memories through secret passages he'd explored decades ago. The wine cellar, the hidden door behind the library, the servant stairs that led to the third-floor nursery. He found Victoria in the grand parlor, sitting calmly with a glass of wine like she was hosting a dinner party. Alone. Where are they? Blake demanded. Victoria's smile was ice-cold triumph. You always were too trusting, son. Did you really think I'd keep them here where the FBI could find them? Blake's security chief had been right about one thing. Victoria wasn't working alone. Your children are somewhere safe, she continued, with people who understand the value of leverage. And they'll stay safe as long as you remember that family loyalty goes both ways. As FBI agents handcuffed Victoria Callahan, she looked her son in the eyes one final time. You chose her over blood. Now live with the consequences. The family that survived kidnapping, legal fraud, and media storms was about to grow. Proof that love doesn't just endure crisis, it transforms it into something beautiful. Maya and Zara were found safe in a cabin in North Georgia, cared for by one of Victoria's housekeepers who'd been threatened into compliance. The woman had actually protected the twins, keeping them calm and comfortable while Victoria played her dangerous games. When FBI agents arrived, both girls were napping peacefully, completely unaware their lives had been in danger. The reunion at the FBI field office was everything Blake had feared he'd never experience. Maya running in his arms, crying daddy, while Zara clung to Nia like she'd never let go. Complete, overwhelming relief that made grown agents wipe their eyes and look away. Are you happy? Nia asked 6 months later, watching Blake assemble a crib in their new nursery. Happy doesn't cover it, he replied, tightening screws with focused concentration. I'm home. For the first time in my life, I'm exactly where I belong. The pregnancy had been a surprise discovered during Nia's routine medical check after the kidnapping trauma. Stress tests revealed not PTSD, but morning sickness. Their third child, conceived during those weeks of healing together in the safe house. When you finally get the life you've always wanted, how do you make sure you don't take it for granted? What does home mean to you? The new house in Buckhead balanced security with family life. High-tech protection systems hidden behind playground equipment and family-friendly design. Maya and Zara had adjusted beautifully, their medical conditions stable and their personalities thriving now that both parents were present and committed. Blake had restructured Callahan Industries completely. Work-from-home policies, family-first scheduling, and a charitable foundation focused on children's health care that had already helped dozens of families facing impossible medical bills. Victoria faced federal charges for fraud, kidnapping, and racketeering. Her political connections couldn't save her from the evidence Blake's team had gathered. She'd die in prison, her legacy reduced to cautionary tales about toxic family dynamics. The twins are excited about their baby brother, Nia said, rubbing her growing belly as Blake finished the crib assembly. How do you know it's a boy? Intuition. Plus, he kicks like a soccer player. Blake knelt beside her chair, pressing his ear to her stomach. Hey there, little guy. Your sisters can't wait to meet you. The baby kicked against his cheek, and Blake laughed. The sound of a man who'd found everything he'd been searching for without knowing he was lost. 6 months later, as Nia's pregnancy progressed beautifully and the twins thrived in their stable home, Blake received a call that brought their journey full circle. Mr. Callahan, this is Children's Healthcare of Atlanta. We'd like to discuss naming rights for our new wing dedicated to rare genetic disorders. Your foundation's contributions have saved dozens of children. Blake looked at Nia, who smiled and nodded. Let's call it the Maya and Zara wing, he suggested. Let our daughters know their survival started something bigger than we ever imagined. But as they celebrated their growing family and expanding foundation, neither Blake nor Nia noticed the photographer across the street, taking pictures of their perfect life. Some stories don't end. They just begin new chapters. The children who almost died from a rare genetic disorder grew up to see their names on the hospital wing that saves other children. Proof that some stories don't end. They multiply into hope. 5 years later, the Maya and Zara wing of Children's Healthcare sparkled with morning sunlight streaming through floor-to-ceiling windows. The 6-year-old twins stood beside their parents, scissors in hand, ready to cut the ribbon on a medical facility that would help hundreds of families avoid the nightmare they'd once lived. Do you remember being sick? A reporter asked Maya during the ceremony. A little, she replied, her hazel eyes, so much like her father's, serious and thoughtful. But mostly I remember Daddy coming to save us. Zara, ever the more dramatic twin, added, and Mommy was really brave. She called Daddy even though they were fighting. Blake Jr., now 4 years old with his mother's smile and his father's stubborn chin, tugged on Blake's suit jacket. Daddy, when do I get a wing named after me? When you save someone's life, buddy. Can I save Maya and Zara's lives again? They don't need saving anymore, but there are lots of other kids who do. The ceremony brought together families whose children had been treated in the wing. Dozens of success stories that might never have happened without the medical research and treatment options Blake and Nia's foundation had funded. What legacy do you want to leave? How can your struggles become someone else's survival story? Share your vision of turning pain into purpose. Dr. Martinez, now head of pediatric genetics, spoke about the wing's impact. In 5 years, we've treated over 200 children with rare genetic conditions. The survival rate has increased from 60% to 94%. The Maya and Zara wing isn't just a building. It's proof that love can literally save lives. Blake's TED Talk about leading with love had gone viral, reshaping corporate culture around family values and authentic leadership. Callahan Industries was now recognized as one of America's most family-friendly companies, with policies that other corporations copied worldwide. Nia had completed her medical degree, specializing in pediatric genetics. She worked part-time at the hospital, part-time with their foundation, and full-time as the heart of their family. Watching her with patients' families, Blake often marveled at how someone so young had developed such wisdom about pain and healing. After the ceremony, Blake and Nia stole away to the hospital rooftop where they'd first reconciled years ago. The Atlanta skyline stretched before them, but their attention was focused on each other. Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't found each other again? Nia asked, settling into his arms as the sun set behind the city. Blake pulled her closer, breathing in the vanilla scent that still made his heart race. I don't wonder. I know. We would have kept searching until we did. Some love is just inevitable. Their kiss tasted like promise and future, like battles won and peace earned. Below them, the Maya and Zara wing glowed with warm light as evening shift nurses began their rounds, caring for children whose families would never face the impossible choices Blake and Nia had once confronted. Sometimes the greatest love stories aren't about perfect people finding each other. They're about broken people choosing to heal together. Blake and Nia's journey from abandoned pregnant wife and cowardly husband to united parents and community leaders proves that redemption is possible, forgiveness is powerful, and family is worth fighting for. If this story touched your heart, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories about love, loss, and second chances. Tell me in the comments, what would you fight for? What's worth rebuilding your entire life around? And remember, your story isn't over. The best chapters might still be unwritten.